Well, my name is Dean Wilson. I'm a Alaskan trapper and fur buyer, and I've spent most of my life in Alaska trapping and buying fur. And I have extensive knowledge about the industry, and I've spent my life in the fur industry, mostly as a trapper, but to a large extent as a buyer. I got into trapping as a boy. My father was a trapper. My father was a government trapper, and he trapped for the state of Idaho and the state of Washington, the state of Montana when he was a young man. And at that time, the government had government trappers, which I guess they still do to some extent, but much less today. But he was a government trapper, and he trapped for the government and would go out on calls when they had problems with sheep being killed, or goats, or various animals, cows, so on. And he came to Alaska in the late 30s, and I believe it was the late 30s, and tied in with the Indian people at Northway, and started trapping out of there. And he would come north each fall and go up the Tanana with the riverboat with the trader there by the name of Herman Kessler. He would go up with Herman Kessler on his riverboat up to Northway with the last load or two of gear, and go up and then stay there and trap with the Indian people throughout the winter. And then in the spring he would float back out, reverse, and come out, go down to Rika's Landing, and then come down the Richardson Highway and back to Valdez, and then take the Alaska steamship back to Idaho, where he was based from. And then he would work the farms and the harvest until fall, and then go back and go north again and leave the family behind, and go back to the trap line. And so when I was a boy growing up, finally my mother was convinced that she ought to move the family to Alaska by my father, and my father convinced her that it was the thing to do, was to move the family to Alaska. And the Alaska highway had just been built, and right after the Alaska highway was built, they came up the Alaska highway, and at that time you had to get permission to use the highway, I think. And so they came north to Northway and settled in there, and my father started, a few years later, my father started a trading post, a small little trading post there. And so my brothers and I have two older brothers and one older sister, or one younger sister. I have to get it straight here. One younger sister and two older brothers, and we were white kids around in the community. That we're not gainfully employed by that. I mean, my father wasn't gainfully employed. He was a trapper, and there was a few white people with the U.S. Army stationed there, and it would be stationed for a period of time and then move them, like the Army does, move them out. Love that cup. So we grew up playing with the Indian kids and learning all the habits of the Indian kids, both good and bad. And I'll assure you some were bad, some were good. And we learned to trap, both from our father and from the Indian kids. And we learned to snare, and we learned the ways of the Indians, because that was who we played with. That was who we saw day by day, was the Indian kids. And so that was the start of our trapping. Was right in our backyard, trapping squirrels and rabbits and so on, like, excuse me, much like my children do today. My grandchildren, they trap squirrels and rabbits. As a matter of fact, earlier I talked about a rendezvous we had recently, and my grandson sold, I think, 30-some squirrels to the fur buyer, and a few ermine and so on. And we always encourage them to do that because it's a source of income for them. And they get $1 a piece for the squirrels, and a couple dollars a piece for the ermine, I suppose. I don't know what they were paid, but we always encourage them to do that, and it's not only that, the money aspect of it, but trapping to a large extent is a way of life. And like my grandchildren, they're native, they're half-breed native, quarter breed, I should say, get it straight, and it's part of their heritage, and it's very important for them to realize that and to carry that forward, and so we encourage that because of that as well, because of their heritage and because of their income, and rather than every time they want to pop, come in and bum Grandpa for $1, Grandpa can say, well, did you check your traps today? And they can say, well, no, but I'm going to, or whatever. And they can go out and they can go get the $1, and instead of getting it from Grandpa, they can get the $1 from the trap line quite often. Mm-hmm. And this is very important, and I think it's important for children to learn that. Mm-hmm. And it's an important way of life for them to grasp.
What is involved in running